video is a step-by-step guide of how to fill in a SEND 35 form. Section 1 asks for details of who the appeal is about. If the child is under 16, then the first box can be ticked. If the person is 16 to 25 years old, the second box needs to be ticked. The details of the child or young person then need to be completed in the boxes below. Next is a section where the parent, carer, or young person must tick the boxes that apply. So if, for example, a final EHCP has been issued, this box would need to be ticked. Following that final EHCP being issued, the parent, carer, or young person is unhappy with what is written in Section B, the special educational needs. Then this box would also need to be ticked. For this example, the parent, carer, or young person is also not happy with what is written about the child or young person's special educational provision, which is Section F. This box would be ticked. And finally, the parent, carer, or young person is not happy with the education setting named in Section I. So this box would also be ticked. This is just an example, and depending on the situation, this will be different for different appeals. This next section only needs to be completed if the parent, carer, or young person is unhappy with Section I of the EHCP. If this is the case, then the parent, carer, or young person's preferred education setting, along with the full address, needs to be completed. If Section I is being appealed against, the parent, carer, or young person must contact the education setting to inform them that they are lodging an appeal for a place. In this box, the parent, carer must confirm they have done this and give details of the date of contact and the education setting's response. There is also the option to add a type of education setting in this box, if the parent, carer, or young person is unable to name a particular school at the time of lodging the appeal. It is also possible to ask the tribunal to make recommendations about the health and social care sections within an EHCP. If this applies, one or both of these boxes can be ticked. Here is an example of what the parent, carer, or young person may write to show that the education setting has been contacted and informed that a place is being appealed for. I emailed Poppy Field School on Friday the 1st of March 2024 to inform them I was appealing for a place for my child. The school replied by email to say they could meet my child's needs and feel the cohort of pupils within the school have similar needs to my child. I have attached a copy of the email and a copy of the school's response. In Section 3 of the form, it asks parent, carers, or the young person for the reasons for the appeal. This first box must be completed for all appeals. This is often the section that takes the most time and thought, so here are some do's and don'ts when completing it. Do. Keep reasons short, relevant, and to the point. Refer to any evidence that supports the appeal. Number the paragraphs or organize them under headings. Separate points into paragraphs or use bullet points. Look at the reasons the local authority have given in their letter. Don't. Go into history that is not relevant to the appeal. If the information does not fit in the space given, a separate sheet can be used. If this is the case, make sure you write in the relevant box that there is a separate sheet and be sure to put a header on this sheet. This is an example of what you may write and how to lay out the separate page if more space is needed. The following two boxes will only need to be completed if the parent, carer, or young person is appealing against Sections B and or F. Again, if, for example, the parent, carer, or young person disagrees with the description of special educational needs in Section B, then the reasons why they disagree need to go into the relevant box, linking to professional reports where possible. Again, if more space is required, the parent, carer, or young person can write, "Please see attached sheet," in the box. This is an example of the type of thing a parent, carer, or young person could write if they were appealing against Section F of the EHCP, which is the educational provision. The next box, here, is the parent, carer, or young person's chance to say what they feel the local authority have not considered. This can be things such as the impact the lack of provision the child or young person is receiving, or the impact of the child or young person being in a setting that cannot meet their needs. If the parent, carer, or young person is appealing against what is in Section I of the EHCP, then the following two boxes need to be completed. Again, if the parent, carer, or young person can link the reasons they disagree with the local authority's choice, and why they prefer their choice of education setting, then they should do so. If the parent, carer, or young person is unhappy with the health and/or social care sections of the EHCP, the extended powers give parents and young people the right to request recommendations about the health and social care needs and provisions specified in EHC plans, in addition to the educational aspects. When making a SEND appeal, the appeal must include an appeal about an education section, B, F, and/or I for this to be possible. If the parent, carer, or young person is asking the tribunal to make recommendation on health and social care sections in the EHCP, they can state the reasons why they disagree with these sections in this next section. Again, this can only be added to an appeal about an education section, which are sections B, F, and I. Any health care provision that educates or trains a child or young person is seen as a special educational provision in law and should therefore be in Section F of the EHCP. For example, speech and language therapy provision. Section 5 asks for the details of the local authority the parent, carer, or young person is appealing against. This would be Norfolk County Council. It then asks for the date of the decision letter. This is the letter that gives the parent, carer, or young person the right to appeal, for example following an annual review, the letter that informs the parent, carer, or young person that the EHCP is being maintained. Here are two examples of decision letters from Norfolk County Council. One is a letter informing the parent that the final EHCP has been issued following the draft plan process. The other is a decision to maintain an EHCP following an annual review. If the parent, carer, or young person is making a late appeal, or an appeal without a mediation certificate when one is required, they must explain their reasons why in this next section. This could be that the parent was waiting for support to understand the process, for example. In Section 6, the form asks who is making the appeal. One out of the first three boxes needs to be ticked. The options are a parent or other on behalf of a child under 16 years old, a young person, aged over 16 and under 25, or an alternative person. This is someone who is making an appeal in the best interests of a young person who does not have the mental capacity to bring an appeal themselves. For more information on mental capacity, please see the resources on our website. Section 6 then goes on to ask for some details of the person making the appeal. It is important that this information is correct, especially the email address, as this is how the person making the appeal will be contacted. This is still Section 6 and it asks for the details of a second person that may be making the appeal. This section does not have to be filled in if there is nobody else making the appeal. Leave this section blank. Section 7 asks who else is involved in the appeal. Again, if this section is not applicable, then please leave it blank. The first box would be completed if any other person or organization shares parental responsibility for the child or has been appointed as a deputy by the Court of Protection for a young person. If this is the case, please give the name and contact details of each person or organization, and confirm that you have notified them of the appeal. If the first box is applicable but the parent, carer, or young person believes they should not receive the details of the appeal, reasons must be given. If any other court or tribunal has made an order concerning the child or young person, including the family court, the parent, carer, or young person must provide the details in the third box. Section 7 continues and asks if there is an advocate supporting with the appeal. Advocacy is defined as support from another person to help you express your views and wishes and help you understand and exercise your rights. If a parent, carer, or young person is unable to express their views and wishes and exercise their rights, we may be able to offer advocacy support to them. If there is an advocate supporting, then their details should be added in this section. The next part of Section 7 asks if there is a representative supporting with the appeal. A representative is defined as someone who will give advice on the issues in the appeal, prepare the paperwork and represent the person making an appeal to the tribunal. They can also be an advocate. They could be a volunteer from a charity, a paid representative, a solicitor, or barrister. This is a more involved support than advocacy. It is not necessary to have a representative, but if a parent, carer, or young person does choose to appoint one, then it is important this is somebody who specializes in SEND. At the bottom, here, the parent, carer, or young person needs to tick a box to choose who the papers and documents are sent to. Only one person can be chosen. Section 8 is about the parent, carer, or young person's needs and requirements for the hearing. These are things which the tribunal will need to take into account when arranging your hearing. This might be things such as hearing loops or disabled access. The second question asks if the parent, carer, or young person needs a signer or interpreter and language requirements for the hearing. If the answer is yes, tick the yes box and give details in the boxes below. Next is Section 9. In this section, the parent, carer, or young person is asked 3 questions. The first question is to confirm if the parent, carer, or young person would agree to the appeal being heard on the written evidence provided, without an oral hearing. For this to happen, it has to be agreed by both parties and a judge. If this was agreed, it would mean that there would be no hearing and the decision would be made based on the evidence submitted. If the parent, carer, or young person feels their evidence is strong and would like a paper hearing, they need to tick the yes box. The next question asks if the person making the appeal would be happy with the hearing being listed at an earlier date if one becomes available. The person making the appeal should tick yes or no for this question. The final question in Section 9 asks if there is another current appeal or claim in relation to the child or young person or a sibling that is being dealt with at the moment. If the answer is yes, details then need to be provided in the last box. Section 10 is a checklist. These are the documents that must be sent off for the appeal to be lodged successfully. Finally, Section 11. This is the section where the person lodging the appeal must sign and date the form. It is acceptable to sign this electronically with the person's name. Section 12 has information of how to send the paperwork. This can be done via post or via email. If the parent, carer, or young person wishes to email the paperwork, they will need to do so to the email address on screen, and in the subject box, they must write "New Appeal." For both post and email, all documents on the checklist in Section 10 must be sent for the appeal to be lodged. If the parent, carer, or young person has any additional evidence they wish to send with the SEND 35 form, they can do so and list that evidence on the final page of the form. It is not essential this is done at the time of sending off the SEND 35, as this can be done later on during the process. What happens next? You will receive a tribunal pack, which are called case directions, within 20 days. This pack will include a table of dates, and it is important you make note of these. For more information about appealing a final EHCP, please see our Appealing to the SEND Tribunal resource section.